Today we are joined by Reggie Boqo from Gibela. The leadership at Gibela will be telling us more about the work they're doing with PRASA. I believe you've been doing some great work with PRASA, and welcome to BRICS Africa Channel.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good afternoon. And yes, we have been doing some great work with PRASA. We have a partnership with PRASA where we are manufacturing 600 train sets for PRASA. And we are also looking after the trains in the form of the technical services and support agreement we have with them, which is a 19-year contract. So the idea behind it is we make a good product and we look after the product so that PRASA as an operator is able to provide a high-level service to its commuters. And at this point, we have now reached the 335 mark in terms of 600 trains, so well beyond the halfway mark for 600 trains. And all is going well. Our factory, which is based in Ekurhuleni in Dunnottar, is well established now, very mature. In fact, we have one of the fastest production rates globally, where we are able to produce between 6 and 7 trains a month to supply the PRASA contract.
And what influenced the efficiency into such levels?
Well, the influence and the efficiency is that we are always innovating. We're looking at using the best industrial methods that we can apply. We're always looking at improving our task sequences, training our employees to know the best, and optimizing in every opportunity we can find to make sure that we remain efficient. But behind the efficiency is to also manage the cost of the product. So we're not just producing quality trains, but we must produce them at a viable cost level. And efficiency becomes very important in that equation.
And where do you source these people? I believe in SADC, there's still no rail university, and why is that?
Well, something that's been discussed quite a number of times, including in platforms like this, Africa Rail, that there has to be something like this. But we are aware that there are a number of universities that have got faculties that focus on rail. Now, for instance, from a Gibela perspective, we focus on development, and we partner with some of these tertiary institutions. We have what we call the research chairs partnership with 2 universities in particular. One of them with Stellenbosch for the engineering side on rail, and the other one is with the Tshwane University of Technology, or TUT for short, which is for the industrial part of the rail manufacturing side. And we use those students or deploy them in our environment to help us look for those efficiencies we were asking about earlier. But also we tap onto them to look for best methods that we can continue researching and we can bring them into our environment.
And in the SADC side, have you started getting more projects from the SADC nations?
At this point, not, but engagements have been going. There's huge appetite and interest from the neighboring countries for us to be able to support them with the trains at the later stage. So those discussions are happening, but at this point, we are solely focused on delivering on the PRASA project until those discussions have matured sufficiently to become into projects that we can deliver. The vision behind the factory is that ultimately we have to provide enough trains for the rest of the continent. This is the largest state-of-the-art facility that is available in the continent, and it makes sense in line with the AU objective that South Africa should be the rail hub. Let's Gibela way to position itself to be able to materialize and make sure that that dream is in fact realized.
And is that dream profitable?
Well, we'll only know once we conclude transactions, of course. But I think from a continental perspective, at a macro level, it has to be profitable because it speaks about free trade. It speaks about free movement of people. It speaks about a cost-effective way of moving people in high volumes, which is different to other modes of transport. And rail can be the backbone of economy. Any economic development has to be reliant on rail as well.
Whenever I get a chance, I normally ask the leadership, there's this vision of Cape to Cairo. Am I gonna see this vision in my lifetime happening?
I think you and I would like to see that. And certainly from our end, as we say, we now have a facility that we should have. The discussions around the conferences, and not only this conference, is about how we can uniformize or standardize rail in the continent. Because you move from one country to the next and the gauge is different.
Sure.
Those are the challenges that you have. But with the different discussions that are happening around standardizing rail in the continent, I think that dream is not just a dream, but it will happen.
So there is a conversation about harmonization of all the policies throughout.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There is that conversation. Even from a regulatory perspective, the regulators are now starting to talk among themselves to say, how do we, on a standard basis, regulate rail? And the operators are saying, how can we then take advantage of that? And I think you'll find that the business case is there. It just needs a bit of working on and standardization, and the more we can get to that direction. And then, of course, the huge investment that's required, because rail is a capital-intensive sector that requires a lot of funding. But you would have heard from the conference that the theme now is about how do we get private sector to also participate so that we can expand what the fiscus, national fiscus can do to make sure that rail, in fact, takes center stage in the economy.
And what are the bottlenecks appear to be from the private sector that is interested in investing here?
Well, the number of things that you would hear private sector speaking about is standardization, which is one of them. It's policy certainty, and now with the number of reforms that you see, particularly in South Africa, that have been put in place. I mean, just recently the minister launched the National Railway Master Plan, and it's the first in a number of years that it's a clear objective and a true guideline to the entire sector to say this is where the country is going. Now, all we have to do as role players is to plug ourselves in a plan that's already outlined by the country. And there, I think it's going to take us forward. The next step is that national railway plan to integrate with the regional railway plans, and then ultimately the continent. And there is your Cape to Cairo dream coming to fruition.
Well, I know about our master plans. The question becomes, we tend to have new ministers every time we have the master plan. And you ask yourself, when do we start actioning it? Where is the pipeline from the skills point of view, from the materials point of view, and also from those pledges that were made in the South African Investment Conference during the presidential conference? Is all those pledges coming through, or are they starting to trickle in?
I think they're starting to trickle in, but the important, you asked the question earlier about what are the private investors saying. One of the things they've been bemoaning for a while is that there is not sufficient or adequate project preparation. In other words, the project is a dream,
Sure.
but we don't have a proper preparation to make sure that it's successful. Because what makes a project is it's being able to be implemented and being successful. And we've seen a lot of work going into that. We've seen what a unit that's set up now that's working under the DBSA called the PSP.
Okay.
That's helping to build government capacity and bring private sector into play so these projects can start rolling out. And I think that is going to unlock a number of opportunities.
I would wish so, because I think African Development Bank has also been hinting on that problem of bankable projects. And so you're saying that DBSA now has a facility where the private sector can really go and dive in to find out of like what and how they can be able to participate in this.
Yes, so I think you see the government being in implementation mode. So this unit is housed at DBSA, but it's a national treasury unit called the PSP. And what they're trying to do is to listen to what private sector is saying needs to happen, and listen to what government needs to achieve, and they pull these two things together. The minister announced earlier that there's about 68 billion rand worth of projects that are now hitting ground. So those investment pledges that have come through, they're waiting for viable projects to be unlocked. We now know that the National Railway Master Plan requires nearly 2 trillion over a 10-year period. So the path is clear, the plans have to be viable, a lot of project preparation has to be put in place, and the capacity is there. We are there, we can deliver.
Thank you for that, Mr. Boqo. I really appreciate you joining us on BRICS Africa Channel.
Thank you very much.